Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today's going to be interesting. We're tackling a listener submission, and it's actually a podcast script all about self-help.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're
Uh,
going to be kind of dissecting it, pulling out the core ideas, figuring out what makes it tick.
I like it. Going meta.
Exactly.
Mm.
Meta deep dive. Haha. But really, the goal is to give you guys actionable stuff you can actually use,
Hmm.
not just more motivational fluff, right?
Couldn't agree more. People want practical strategies, things they can implement.
Exactly. So let's dive right in. This script starts off strong, saying self-help is about taking control, taking responsibility, not waiting around for things to magically change. What do you think about that as a foundation?
It's interesting, right? Because it's a pretty big shift from how people used to see themselves. Like this whole idea that you're not just a pawn of fate, that you actually have the power to shape your own destiny. That's huge. It's
It's
empowering.
like we've all been handed the driver's seat to our own lives.
And a lot of times we don't even realize it, or we don't know how to drive.
Yeah, we need the roadmap. And speaking of roadmaps, this script dives deep into SMART goals. The specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound stuff.
Oh, yeah, classic.
Right. And honestly, as much as we've all heard about it, it's a pretty brilliant system just in its simplicity. But what I found interesting was the script claims there are benefits to setting SMART goals beyond just, actually achieving the specific goal itself. Like, there's more to it than just checking boxes.
Absolutely. It's about the skills you build along the way. Think about it. When you break down a goal using that SMART method, you're forced to plan, to prioritize, you have to problem solve.
Right. You have to think through the steps.
Exactly. You're naturally learning to navigate obstacles, setbacks, because let's face it, those are inevitable in anything worthwhile. But those skills, those are invaluable, and they don't just disappear when you hit your goal. They transfer to other areas of life.
So it's like you're building mental muscle in addition to making progress on your goals. I like that. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something I think everyone can relate to. Limiting beliefs. This script mentions those quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, we all have those.
Right, those little voices in our heads that whisper, you can't do that, you're not good enough, all that fun stuff. But how do they actually impact our behavior? They're so insidious, it's like this background noise we don't even realize is shaping our reality.
It's so true. That's exactly why they're so powerful. Limiting beliefs often operate beneath our awareness. We don't even realize they're there, but they're influencing our thoughts, our feelings, our actions in huge ways. For example, let's say you have this belief that you're not good enough.
Right.
You might unconsciously sabotage your own success by, I don't know, procrastinating on a project or not even applying for that promotion you deserve.
Wow, it's like self-sabotage on autopilot.
Exactly.
And because we often don't realize it's happening, we don't even think to challenge those beliefs. It's like we're running on faulty programming.
And the crazy thing is, we can reprogram ourselves.
That's what this whole self-help thing is about, right?
Yeah.
Now, this makes me think about an idea from James Clear's Atomic Habits. The script brings up his work, specifically this concept of getting 1% better each day. It just seems so doable, so unintimidating.
Right, it's not overwhelming.
Exactly. But does it really work? Can those tiny changes really add up to significant growth?
You know, that's what's so interesting about Clear's work. It's grounded in behavioral science. Like, it's not just feel-good advice. There's actual research behind it. The idea that small changes consistently applied can create huge results.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And the 1% principle, that plays on the magic of compounding. You're not aiming for this massive overnight transformation, but rather a series of small wins that build momentum over time.
Okay, that makes sense. I love that idea of our efforts gaining momentum, like the snowball effect.
Yeah, it starts small, but it can become huge.
Exactly. Now, this next part, this really caught my eye because it's not something you always see highlighted in self-improvement advice, self-compassion. The script actually dedicates a whole section to being kind to ourselves.
Oh, that's so important.
Right. And I think it's easy to overlook, especially when we're so focused on achieving goals, making progress. Why is that self-compassion piece so vital, especially in the context of personal growth, which, let's face it, involves challenges and setbacks?
It's interesting, right? We tend to be much harder on ourselves than we would ever be on a friend or a loved one. But that inner critic, man, that can be a major roadblock on the path to growth. When you cultivate self-compassion, you're basically swapping that harsh inner voice for a kinder, more supportive one.
So instead of beating ourselves up over every mistake, we're learning to treat ourselves with the same understanding and encouragement we'd offer a close friend.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective is huge because it allows you to reframe setbacks as opportunities for learning and growth. You're less afraid of failure, more willing to experiment, more resilient in the face of challenges, all things that are like essential for personal development.
It's like instead of getting stuck in that cycle of self-criticism, we're giving ourselves permission to learn and grow from our experiences.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
Now, the script also touches on stress and anxiety, which I know are huge topics for our listeners. It mentions self-help techniques like mindfulness, deep breathing exercises, things like that. But then it also talks about seeking professional help when needed. Where do you see that line between self-help and, actually needing to reach out to a professional for support?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because self help can definitely give us some amazing tools for managing our mental and emotional well being, but it's not a substitute for professional help if you're dealing with, serious mental health challenges.
Right. It's not a cure-all.
No, definitely not. Think of it like this. Self help is kind of like having a first aid kit. It's great for those everyday bumps and bruises, those minor injuries. But if you break your leg, you need to see a doctor, right? You need expert help to set it properly.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
Okay, I'm glad we clarified that. Now, something else that stood out to me in this script was the emphasis on relationships. It talks about how self-help can actually improve our interactions with others, which I thought was really interesting. So how do you see those two things connecting? How does self-help impact our relationships?
It's interesting because it's kind of a two-way street. As you grow and evolve as a person, your relationships are going to inevitably change as well. The script really zeroes in on active listening and setting healthy boundaries. Two things that are super important for any kind of relationship, whether it's with a partner, family, friends, even colleagues at work.
So active listening, that's about really truly listening to what the other person is saying, trying to understand their perspective, not just like waiting for our turn to talk,
Yeah,
really.
exactly. It's about being present in that moment, in that conversation, putting aside your own thoughts, your own judgments, and just making a real effort to connect with the other person, to see things from their point of view. It sounds simple, but it's actually a skill. It takes practice.
It does. It reminds me of that quote. I can't remember who said it, but it's something like, most people don't listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply,
Oof, that's so true.
isn't it? What about setting healthy boundaries? Why is that so important, and how does that tie back into self-help?
Setting boundaries is huge because it's all about, honoring your own needs,
Hmm.
recognizing your own limits. It's about feeling empowered to say no to things that drain you, things that don't align with your values. And then, of course, it's about being able to communicate those boundaries clearly and respectfully to the people in your life. And that can be really tough for some people, especially if you're used to, always putting others' needs before your own.
Right, it's like people-pleasing versus self-care.
Yes, and it's a learning curve, but it's so essential for building healthy, balanced relationships.
It's almost like you're drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is what I'm okay with, and this is where I draw the line. And maybe as we become more self-aware through, our own self-help journeys, we're better equipped to even identify what those boundaries should be.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is key.
Okay, the script kind of wraps up with a classic self-help theme, gratitude,
Hmm.
positive thinking. And honestly, part of me is like, here we go again, because it can feel a little cliche. But I do think there's something to be said for focusing on the good.
It's so easy to get bogged down in negativity, especially in today's world.
Right.
There's a lot going on, and our brains are kind of hardwired to focus on the negative, on threats, and what's wrong.
That's true.
But gratitude, it's like this antidote. It helps us shift our perspective, helps us appreciate all the good things in our lives, even when things are tough.
Yeah, it's like we're choosing to focus on the good even when it's hard.
Exactly. And it's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything's perfect.
Yeah.
It's about actively looking for the good, even in difficult situations.
Right, finding the silver linings. As we've been unpacking this whole self-help script thing, it's really struck me how much of it comes back to taking ownership.
Oh, absolutely.
Like ownership of our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions.
Yeah.
It feels like a recurring theme.
It is. It's about recognizing that we have agency,
Yes.
that we're not just passive recipients of whatever life throws our way.
We have a choice.
Yes. And that realization, that can be incredibly powerful, liberating even.
It's like we're finally stepping into the driver's seat, like we were talking about earlier, and taking control of the journey.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, this has been such a fascinating deep dive. I feel like we've really gone, well, deep into this self-help script. So much great stuff to unpack.
It's been my pleasure. Always fun to explore these ideas from a different angle.
I appreciate you being here to share your insights.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much practical wisdom can be packed into something that's essentially like a blueprint for a podcast, right?
Right. It's like meta self-help. But seriously, it makes you think. If our listener were to take just one action today, one small step to put these ideas into practice, what would it be?
Ooh, I love that. What one tangible thing would you recommend our listener do today to start embodying that self-help mindset?
If I had to pick just one, I would say start a gratitude practice.
Okay, I know we were just talking about gratitude, but I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It sounds almost too simple, I know, but taking even just a few minutes each day to really reflect on what you're grateful for, it can have a huge impact on your mindset.
It's like a mental reset button almost.
Exactly. And the best part is it's so easy. Anyone can do it. But it helps to rewire your brain to focus on the positive even when things are tough.
I love that. A gratitude reset button. I might steal that.
Go for it.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you to hit your own reset buttons and implement some of these amazing insights. Remember, personal growth is a journey, not a destination. And every step, no matter how small, counts. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.